was 10 years old, mommy was what? Pregnant with the new daddy's baby. 2 years after she had that one, what was mommy? Because she had a 7-year-old. And then 2 years after that, what was mommy? The whole time this young man needs who first? Who does he need? Who does he need? What was she? And busy with the other children because she assumed that you're my son, you're fine, and I'm going to yell at you, and I'm going to scream at you, and you're going to pick up the kitchen, and you're going to get the clothes, and you're going to pull them out, and you're going to get them ready, and you got to be on time, and you can't mess up breakfast because I got a 5-year-old that needs me. Whoever told him he was good? Grades are horrible. Grades are horrible. And he was sitting in a chair mad at me. Oh, they get mad at Mr. Jim. Because I believe only one thing. The truth is the only thing that will make you free. The truth is the only thing that will make you free. And he was sitting in the chair behind his mother. The other two were sitting there, and he pulled a smartphone out of his pocket. Oh, Lord. Now we're getting somewhere. Why do dumb parents give children smartphones? I can't figure it out. They need to be 18. Because what's a smartphone do for you? Oh, it entertains my kid. Yep, right on the porn site. Better hear me. Oh, y'all think y'all got parental controls. I got mine. I got this. I hear you. He pulled his smartphone out. You know what I told his mom? I said, give me the phone. Why this white man asking for my phone? Give me the phone. Gave me the phone. I looked at mom. How old is mom? 28. Good guess. She's 28 years old. He's 14, which means how old was she when she had him? 14, 15. She got pregnant. Sad, right? Reality. Come on. Y'all better get on board, because if you act like it's not reality and you say it's not my daughter, we got problems. Because I'm telling you, 91 times, every other Tuesday, I know whose fault it is. Give me the smartphone. His name is Trevor. I shouldn't tell you his first name. I can tell you, but I won't tell you his last name. His name is Trevor. He's a really cool kid. Really sharp. Trevor, give me your smartphone. I looked at his mom. Who pays this bill? I do. Turn it off. Turn it off in my office, and it cannot be turned back on until I tell you you can turn it on. And if you turn it back on outside of my office, I'm done seeing Trevor, because I can't help him. Because Trevor's up 3 o'clock in the morning. What's he doing? Should be asleep, talking to his friends, getting on places he shouldn't be on, Instagram, Snapchat. Now, that's Trevor. Now I'm going to tell y'all about Terrence, because they're very similar, both 14-year-olds. One mom took the phone, turned it off. One mom, she didn't want to take the phone. 4 weeks later, they're in my office. And guess what Terrence has already done? He just turned 15. And he sent pictures of himself to the little girl right down the street in the same apartment complex. So guess who got called? JSO. There is nothing worse than a white man in a police uniform go into a 15-year-old African-American boy's house. I'm just going to tell you right now, there's nothing worse. Well, there probably are a couple things worse. Somebody with Ebola or something, that's probably that's worse. I'd probably rather deal with the Ebola patient than a white, pissed off, 55-year-old white man coming to my house and I have a black teenage son. That's just the truth in Duval County. I'm sorry, I'll tell it like it is. Because what's he automatically assumed? That Terrence did it. That's what he automatically assumed, right? But Terrence did have the pictures of himself on the phone, but guess who sent them to the little girl? his friends who have his phone. And the mom's crying. Mr. Jim, I told you 4 weeks ago to do what? See, God lets us hear things when we're supposed to hear them. What we do with that knowledge is up to us. But I will say that again. God lets us hear things when we're supposed to hear it. What we do with that knowledge now is up to us. Had she took the phone and turned it off, guess what would have happened? And if something did happen, he sure would have had to use somebody else's smartphone. So he's got to have a buddy nice enough to say, here, let me put pictures of me on your phone and you send them to her. Well, if they do that, that truly is the definition of crazy. Right? You should have took the phone. Trevor gave up his phone. And I looked at Trevor's mom and I said, listen, this is your fault. She dropped her phone. What do you mean it's my fault? And I asked a simple question. When is the last time you told your son that you love him? I'm not talking about this little pitter-pat, walk through, pat somebody on the back, I love you. I'm not talking about that. When is the last time? This is your son. Now, moms, how many of you in here are mothers? How many of you, your firstborn is a male? Ain't nothing like it. Now, there's nothing like your firstborn at all, but there is a special relationship between a mother and a son that is firstborn. The Bible speaks of birthrights. Yeah. Better listen to me. Better figure out how they get passed on. Yes. Better figure out how they get passed on, because it speaks very clearly of them. And he started crying. Because I said to her, he doesn't know how much you love him. And he knows that he's about to not need you because you can't help him anymore. She couldn't help him anymore. So guess who she wanted to help him? Me. Well, his behavior. Well, his this. Well, his that. Okay, I'm going to help you. Give up the smartphone. Take some of the weight off of your 14-year-old. It ain't his fault you got 3 more kids. Should he help? You darn right. Should he have a list of responsibilities posted clearly for every child in the house as to what my expectation as a parent is? But is it fair for me, Rashida, to say, you're going to clean the kitchen, but I never showed you how to clean it? And then when you clean the kitchen, you get all what? Mad. What's wrong with you? These dishes are dirty. Okay, but I ain't never washed dishes before. When I see dishes getting washed, it's usually being put through a machine on the TV. We don't got one of those. You didn't make your bed. Yeah, I did. You didn't make your bed like I want you to make your bed. Okay, well, could you show me how to do it? You put all that stuff under your bed. That's how you clean your room? Why do we have an expectation if we didn't show them how? One of the first things I tell the mom is you got to stop yelling. You know what all of them say? How did you know? How did I know? Because the first thing y'all do with everything is yell, even the ones that ain't taking no medicine. Sorry, let's call it like it is. And then you say to your husband, didn't you hear me? I heard you yelling about something, but I don't know what it was. You better tell me again. Or you come home and you say, well, why do you cut the grass? I need the grass cut on that. I didn't hear you say nothing about it. I was talking about, no, you wasn't yelling about something, but you sure wasn't talking. Because we don't communicate. We yell. Now I'm going to ask all of you, raise your hands. You got a best friend? Who's your best friend? You just got one. If you have a best friend, raise your hand. Somebody that you can rely on, your partner, your friend. I can call them on the phone and tell them anything. If you don't have one, you need to get one. Because the research says this, if you have a best friend that you can tell anything to without any condemnation or judgment, you'll never need me. The research says. Because sometimes being able to just talk about it helps. But let me ask you a question. Would you yell at your best friend? Would you treat your best friend like a dog? Would you take your best friend for granted? No, because you know if you get out of gas on the side of the road, who are you going to call? Not that 14-year-old you just yelled at. Not your best friend that you just made very upset with you now. We got to learn to treat our children like our best friends, but they have to respect us. You have to learn to treat your child like your best friend. They have to respect you, because what do they tell their best friend? Everything. We just determined that. Girl, let me tell you what happened to me today, and we was down there on the We tell them everything. And then we get mad when our 14-year-old sends pictures of themselves. Why you didn't tell me? Then we get mad when our 14-year-old drives the car without permission, or stays at their friend's house, or like the little 11-year-old boy that they had a all points bulletin out on that they just found this morning, was missing since yesterday. They just found him, 11 years old. His mom telling the 11-year-old, come on, we got to go to the police station, they're looking for you. I'm 11. Are you kidding me? We'll go to the next slide. Positive interactions. Stressors. Every single thing that happens to your child is a result of stress. You better hear me. Every single thing that happens to your child is a result of stress. Stress and anxiety are interchangeable. It's the same word. Your child, unless they were born to drug addiction, alcohol addiction, those types of mothers, are not born with high levels of anxiety. Your child, unless they are born to an addictive parent, are not born with high levels of anxiety. Because babies only need what? Food, sleep, and clean clothes. So if he or she wets or does number 2, they'll cry, right? If they're hungry, they'll what? Cry. If they need sleep and they haven't slept, and then they'll cry themselves to sleep. But if you feed them, and you keep them clothed and clean, and you give them sufficient sleep, they sleep, because that's what babies do, right? Now, if you've ever seen the drug babies, and I hope you haven't, but if you've ever seen the drug babies, they don't sleep. They cry, and they cry, and they cry, and they cry. They have special oscillators. They're called oscillators that they lay the baby on at Shane's right down the street. And it oscillates, it vibrates. You can turn it up for the really addictive babies, the ones on crack, the ones on real high levels of heroin, high levels of substance abuse and alcohol abuse. They can turn them up, they oscillate, and that oscillation calms the baby, and they will finally sleep. But more importantly, they got to give them narcotics. So they give them high doses, and then they slowly wean them down. Those nurses are angels. But a normal baby don't need that, because they're not born that way. But they get 18 months and they do something wrong, what do? We yell at them. They're 18 months, 20 months, 24 months, 2 years, and they're watching Anthony and Rashida yell at each other. They're watching. You think they're not watching. You take for granted. They go to Mama and Papa's house and they're yelling at each other. My first cousin posted up today, they were just at a family reunion on the side of the family that I'm not as close to. And she took a picture with her phone with everybody on their phones. At the family reunion, they haven't seen some folks in 10 years. And you rather play Candy Crush. You better hear me. Playing Candy Crush. Most single mothers raise their children with less than a high school education. In 2013, 70% of all births to black women occurred in single black moms. 71%. The children are then forced to be raised by uneducated mothers or educated, hardworking grandparents who have already raised their children and suffer from their own disparities. Grandma's bringing me the 6-year-old. Have a 13-year-old little girl. She's 13. She's beautiful. Her mom is in prison. She's a biracial baby. Her mom is in prison. Her dad was murdered in front of her. She's 13 years old. She's living with grandma. She hates grandma. She's sitting in my office, mad at the world. You can tell when a child's mad. They don't know how to mask it well. We kind of get over it a little bit, so we might not always know. Angry. Huge amounts of disparity. And I looked at her and I said, you know, you're not a bad kid. You got a rough start. It's not your fault. But from today on, everything you say ugly, everything awful that comes out of your mouth, all of your bad behaviors, you now are accounted for. And will be held accountable for by me. Because I know you're not a bad child. Now listen. This girl's smile is this big. It's the first time I ever saw her. I gave her something for anxiety, non-controlled, non-narcotic, very safe in children, and something for sleep. You think this child is sleeping? Let me just ask you, if your daddy was murdered in front of you and you're 13 and your mom is in prison, could you sleep? If you had to live with your grandma, and it's not because you hate grandma, but that's what you think because you're 13, because everybody abandoned you, could you sleep? Would you do the right thing ever? Could you make good decisions? Could you make good choices? It's our fault. She's 13. Really, if you take away the 6 years, the first 6 years where we spent what? What did we do those first 6 years? We shaped him. The Bible says, train a child in the way that he should go, and when he gets an adult, he'll follow it all the days of his life. We missed it. I looked at her and I said, God love you to death. We missed it. It's our fault. I don't talk to the parents first. I don't talk to grandma first. They're not my patient. Who do I talk to? The child will tell me everything I need to know. The child will tell me everything to do, but most clinicians speak to who? The parent, the teacher, the pastor. All of those are important things. But I want to talk to you, Reggie. I want you to tell me about the demons that live in your mind that make you hate the whole wide world. Because I know if you're honest with me and you trust me, then you'll take your medicine. And if you take your medicine, I can help you. This child, straight X, been expelled, now at a new school, been in all kind of programs. In 3 months, God is my witness, she's a straight A student. She's a straight A student. She's been captain of the cheerleading team. She's been asked by the school to be the video spokesperson. They're making a video for her school. They've asked her to be the spokesperson. She is a leader in her class. Her teacher was going to be absent. They were going to have a fire drill. The teacher told her, let the substitute teacher go out and I want you to organize the fire drill. This child is smiling. This child is happy. This child's aunt couldn't believe it. The aunt, dad is black, so it's the sister of the man. That aunt came to the appointment, hugged my neck. I can't believe this is my niece. Straight A's. She's not on antipsychotics because she's not psychotic. She's angry, but all the anger's coming from all this stress. African American youth living in urban environments have been disproportionately exposed to community violence. We've got to be careful with this one. Yes, Trayvon Martin was a tragedy. Pure ignorance. Pure ignorance. Anybody stupid enough to shoot somebody over a radio needs to be put away forever and ever. And thank God that's what's happening in that case. But we need to be careful because we can incite changes in those young minds if we don't communicate how wrong it was in the right way. There is a right way and a wrong way to do everything. And if we communicate to our children what they did to Trayvon was wrong. But how old was he? Anybody know? 16, right? 16 years old. I'm just going to tell you, for me, I'm going to know where my 16-year-old is. And it's not going to be in a car, driving like that, acting like that in Jacksonville. Well, Jim, why is that? Because I'm white, but I don't want the boys in blue pulling over my child. Because they don't listen. They do what they want to do first, and then they let all the stuff fall out, and now someone is dead. But my child's not going to be in that car because my child is 16 years old. And 16-year-old, if you subtract 6 years, because what do we spend the first 6 years doing? So those are not good coping skills. They start getting some coping skills at 6 or 7. They start to be able to make a decision. That's bad for me at 6 or 7, but at 4 and 5, they don't know. So if you take 6 off of 16, how old is that child really? That's why 35-year-old men got to get to 35 before they can have a productive relationship with themselves, let alone anyone else. Come on. It's the truth. This is why we have disparities in the African-American male population in our youth, because our 16-year-olds are driving 4 and 5 people in the car around. And mom, as a single mom, thought she was doing the right thing by helping them get in the car. And then the police are knocking on the door. Miss Martin, your son is dead. I said, Miss Martin, your son is dead. Everything that follows after that is extremely important because it's connected to all of those pieces. And what we do as leaders is extremely important. Would you let a 10-year-old drive? Y'all better hear me. They got 10 years of coping strategies, and they're in charge of a 4,576-pound missile going 80 miles an hour down the highway with the music so loud or all the way off. I don't care, you pick. With the cell phone in their lap, texting their friends like they are 45 years old with 39 years of coping mechanisms and abilities and thinking and reasoning on board. Now you figure it out. Disproportionately exposed to community violence. Now let me ask you a question. How many people live on the north side? I live right down the street off Lynn Turner, right on the river. I live right on the Trout River. How many people got shot last week in Jacksonville? Anybody know? See, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. Because where did they probably get shot at? In your neighborhood. There was a lot. There were 8 shootings last week alone in Jacksonville. Most of them happened up on the north side. There was one west side shooting. But most of them happened on the north side. You always hear about Sutel and Moncrief and Lynn Turner and 8th Street and all that little area. You always hear about it. So where's the violence occurring for our children that they're seeing? In their own community. In their own community. It's 9 o'clock at night. They're all at the basketball goal. It's been dark for 3 hours. What do you think's going on? I can tell you what's going on because I've been out there at 9 o'clock. Shoot, fly, shoot. Get your butts home. This is my patient. That's the kind of provider I am. Rashida, you're my patient. Go into the basketball court and watch what happens. Anthony, you're my patient. Act up in school. Mr. Jim will come to the school. Mr. Jim will come to the school and meet with the guidance and the teacher. And Mr. Jim will say, you give me a timeout chair right by the teacher's desk. Because who wants to sit up here and time out in front of all of y'all? Nobody. But bring that chair. Anthony, next time I tell you, your dad, your mom, your grandma, they told me to put you in timeout. And that's where you're going to sit. But your mom also told me, Anthony, if you get in timeout here, to tell her how long you were in timeout, because it's double when you get home. We are trying to reason. If you take away the 6 years from a 16, how old are they? Why are we arguing with 10-year-olds? Why in the world are we arguing with 10-year-olds? All right, so you got a 20-year-old going off to college. Oh, they're doing so good. Doing so well. Doing real good. Take 6 years off. How old are they? They're 14 years old. You better hear me. Because I promise you, the first time somebody says to that 20-year-old or 18 or 19-year-old, here, have a drink with us, what are they going to do? They're going to succumb to the peer pressure. Then they're going to wind up in a hazing incident like happened over at FAMU. The whole thing got shut down. They ain't got no drum majors right now. That was an African-American school. They're going to wind up like the young man in Georgia rolled up in a gym mat, hazing incident. That young man was how old? 15? It was 2 years ago? They found him rolled up in a gym mat? That's an African-American male. I don't care if he was green, white, yellow, or brown because it's a loss of human life, but it was so unnecessary. Why? Because our children are being bullied at school or they're being bullies at school. Better hear me. Oftentimes the kids that are bullying other kids, what's happening in their home? They're being yelled at. They're being screamed at. They're being not communicated to. Their parents are fighting. Their parents are not communicating. So now they have no voice where? At home. If you don't have a voice in your own home, where are you going to voice it at? To the weaker person. To the weaker person, you're going to voice it. I'm just going to browbeat you to death. Lathea, I'm just going to bully you to death.